This is just a brief explanation of the virtual lab. Notice that the virtual lab room has a stock room and a workbench. The stock room is where we get all of the solutions, glassware, and tools that we will use for our experiments. The workbench is where you will perform your experiments. So for example, if I want to do an experiment with distilled water, I would simply click on the distilled water and it takes it from the stockroom and puts it on the workbench. This is similar to what you would do in lab where you go and get your equipment. I can do the same thing with glassware. I can choose the type of glassware that I want. I'm going to choose a beaker here, and I'll choose another one. I can also get things like a disposable pipette, various sizes of pipettes, graduated cylinders, Erlenmeyer flasks. You can take a look at any of these and kind of play around in this a bit if you're feeling a little nervous. There's various tools, so there's Bunsen burners and scales. And I'll just get a few different items here so we can see how they work. So first of all, if I want to put water into this 250 milliliter beaker, I can place my beaker down here. I'm going to grab my water. I'm going to put it over the beaker, and this will allow me to pour water from the big carboy into this smaller beaker. We generally want to dispense chemicals from a smaller container because it's easier to work with. This is something that will translate well to the real lab room. You don't normally want to dispense things straight from this big container. So I've got my beaker. Let's say I want to move material from this beaker into this one. I could simply pour it from one to the other. So I can pour. Notice that there's 3 tabs here: realistic, sig-fig, and precise. Realistic allows you to experience what it's really like to pour things from one thing to another. I'm going to hold to pour, and I can add a little bit here. I can, if I put the wrong thing in here, I can simply clean it up by right-clicking and selecting Remove Liquid. You do have some experiments where you're also going to have to use the balance or the scale. To weigh something on the scale, I simply drag it over till you see that dotted outline, and I can read the numbers right off of there. Notice that I can see all these digits. I would record all of these as the mass of this beaker. The disposable pipette, this is similar to how we're going to use any of the pipettes in this class. You use a pipette by dragging it over the container you're going to take the liquid from. Select Hold to withdraw to pull liquid into the pipette. Move the pipette to where you want it to go, and then you can hold to pour. If you want to pour out everything in the pipette, you just simply hold to pour for a while. If you want to do some drops, you can just click on it 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. If we're working with something that requires measurement, so let's say I'm working with a graduated cylinder, I can add material to this graduated cylinder simply by pouring. Notice that when I do this drag, I see a measure over here on the right. This is a zoom in on the measurements on the graduated cylinder, so you can see how much water you've added. So if I just click on the hold to pour, you see I didn't get quite to the 5. It's between this 4 mark and this 5 mark. So I got around 4.4 milliliters of water in here. I can add more. Oh, I noticed that this went above the top line here. A graduated cylinder, you can only measure up to this top line. If it goes above that, you're going to have to empty some out to be able to measure accurately. The last type of equipment I want to show you is the volumetric pipettes. So a volumetric pipette works very similar to the disposable pipette, except it measures a very specific volume very well. So I'm going to hold to withdraw just like I did with the disposable pipette. And I want to pull this up until the liquid is at this, the meniscus is at this line specifically. And this may require a bit of going back and forth. This is really similar to what happens in lab where you never can get it quite on that line. So you got to kind of go back and forth till you get it right on there. So you want that bottom of the meniscus right on the line, and that will allow you to dispense your 10 milliliters of solution or water wherever you need to.